Alex stepped off the shuttle onto the polished metal platform of Aurora Station, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The station hovered silently above a swirling gas giant, its lights reflecting in the endless blackness of space. Everything felt strange yet amazing. He had dreamed of studying among the stars, but now that it was real, the reality was almost overwhelming. Carrying his small bag, he followed the narrow corridor signs to the student quarters. Other students, both human and alien, moved in groups, speaking languages he barely recognized. He tried to smile and nod politely, but most were busy with their own routines. Finally, he reached his assigned pod room. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was small but clean. 2 sleeping pods were side by side, connected to the wall with soft glowing lights. He glanced at the pod on the left and froze. Sitting there, cross-legged, was his roommate. Alex's heart skipped a beat. Lyra looked at him with large, luminous eyes that shimmered like sapphires. Her skin was a deep, calming shade of blue, and her long, flexible limbs curled around her like she was part of the pod itself. She had a calm and gentle presence that made the room feel peaceful, even though it was completely alien. "Welcome, human," she said softly, her voice melodic, but strange to his ears. "I am Lyra. I am glad you are here." Alex managed a nervous smile. "Hi, I'm Alex. It's great to meet you." Lyra stood gracefully, her limbs stretching in ways Alex thought were impossible for a human. She gestured toward the pods. "Tonight we will share a sleeping pod. It is a tradition of my people. We call it close dreams. It is meant to build trust and understanding between roommates." Alex blinked. Share a pod with her? He had never shared a bed with anyone except family, and even then only as a child. Okay, he said, unsure if he could refuse. "If it's tradition, then I guess—" Lyra smiled faintly as if she understood his hesitation. "You will see. It is not uncomfortable. It is only a different way of sharing space. You will rest beside me and we will dream together." The words made Alex uneasy, but there was something honest in her eyes. He decided to trust her. "All right, let's do it." That night, as Alex slid into the pod, he noticed how surprisingly warm it was. Lyra curled next to him, careful to respect his space. He felt a little awkward, but she didn't make him feel uncomfortable. Instead, she began humming a soft, low melody, almost like a lullaby, and he found himself relaxing. At first, the silence was strange. He was aware of every movement, every breath, every small sound. Lyra didn't speak, but her presence was calm and reassuring. Alex wondered what it must feel like to be so close to someone so different, to share space without saying a word. Slowly, his racing thoughts began to quiet. The hum of her voice, combined with the gentle vibrations of the pod, made it almost like floating in water. As he drifted toward sleep, Alex noticed her hands. They were delicate but strong, with long, graceful fingers. Something about the way she held herself suggested she carried more than what she let show. He realized that even though she was calm, she might be hiding something. Maybe it was just the human tendency to read too much into everything, but he felt a faint tug of curiosity mixed with concern. Before he could think further, his eyes grew heavy. The room, the stars outside the tiny viewport, and the strange, beautiful presence of Lyra faded into dreams. He dreamed of floating through glowing nebulae, of distant planets spinning silently beneath him, and Lyra beside him, her glow soft but steady. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Peaceful, yet strangely intimate. When he woke in the morning, the pod was quiet. Lyra was already up, stretching and moving gracefully as if she had just awakened from a long, perfect sleep. She looked at him with the same calm smile. "Did you rest well?" she asked. Alex nodded, still a little unsure. "Yeah, I did. It was different, but good. That is the purpose," she said lightly, "to experience trust, to share the space of dreams. You will understand more as the days go by." He smiled weakly, feeling both nervous and intrigued. There was something about her, something beyond the tradition she spoke of. Alex didn't know it yet, but the shared pod was only the beginning. There was more to Lyra than he could see, and their time together would change both of them in ways he could never imagine. As they left the room to join the other students for their first orientation, Alex stole one last glance at the pod. The soft glow still lingered like a small beacon of connection between them. And in that quiet, he felt the first stirrings of a friendship, or something even more profound, that would take them both far beyond the walls of Aurora Station. The next few days at Aurora Station were a blur of lessons, drills and introductions. Alex tried to keep up, but he could not stop noticing Lyra. She moved with a quiet grace that seemed natural, almost effortless, while he stumbled through the routines. Her eyes, always calm, seemed to see everything, and Alex often felt like she knew more than she let on. Every morning, Lyra followed the same routine. She would stretch in ways that made Alex's neck ache just from watching, then glide over to the food station. She ate sparingly, picking only certain items from the selection. Alex noticed she avoided some foods and never drank the synthetic juice that most students loved. "Do you not like it?" he asked one day, curious. Lyra tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "It does not agree with me," she said softly. "Veyari bodies are sensitive to certain compounds. It is better that I avoid them." Alex nodded, trying not to stare too much. There was something about her quiet confidence that made him feel both in awe and nervous. He realized he had no idea how much to say to her. Humans often shared stories quickly, but Lyra seemed to share only in measured amounts, and each word carried weight. At night, when they returned to their pod, the silence between them grew heavier. Alex began noticing small habits that unsettled him. Lyra would sometimes stare at the corner of the pod as if listening to something invisible. Occasionally, she would wake in the middle of the night, moving slowly and softly, humming a tune that was almost like a memory. She did not notice him watching, but he could not stop. There was a quiet sadness in those moments, a pain she tried to hide. One evening, Alex decided to speak up. "Lyra," he said, his voice gentle, You seem upset sometimes. Is everything okay?" She turned her head, her luminous eyes meeting his. For a moment, he thought he saw a flicker of surprise, maybe even fear. Then her face relaxed into a calm smile. "I am well," she said softly. "Sometimes humans worry too much about small things. You must not concern yourself with me." Alex felt a pang of frustration. He knew there was more than small things. Something about her made him want to understand, to help. But he also knew he had to respect her boundaries. I want to make sure you're safe," he admitted. "Even if it's nothing serious, I care." Lyra's expression softened. "That is kind, but I have learned to manage my pain alone. It is how Veyari survive. Sharing troubles is not always possible." Alex nodded slowly. He could feel the truth in her words, but he also sensed the loneliness hidden beneath. The shared pod, which had felt strange at first, now seemed like a bridge between them. Even in silence, Alex felt connected to her in ways he could not explain. As the week went on, their routine became almost comfortable. They would eat together, train together, and then return to the pod. In the quiet hours, Alex began to notice details he had not before. The way Lyra's fingers trembled slightly when she thought no one was looking. The way her eyes reflected the dim pod lights as if she were watching distant stars in her mind. Even her sleep seemed restless at times, full of tiny movements that hinted at dreams she did not wish to share. One night, as Alex lay pretending to sleep, he felt Lyra shift beside him. Her hand brushed against his arm, hesitant but deliberate. He opened his eyes slowly. Lyra was looking at him, her face calm, but her eyes holding a sadness he had not seen before. "I sometimes remember things," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Things I cannot change. Things I must carry alone." Alex swallowed hard. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he reached out slowly and placed his hand over hers. The contact was simple, but it was enough. Lyra flinched at first, then relaxed slightly, as if she had been waiting for permission to let someone in. For the first time, Alex understood. The tradition of the shared pod was more than a custom. It was a silent offering of trust, a chance to let someone see you even when you tried to hide. Lyra had been offering him a glimpse of her world, even if only a tiny part of it, and he could not ignore it. The room fell silent again, but it was no longer heavy. It felt safe. Alex realized that empathy was not just about words or actions. Sometimes it was about presence. Simply being there silently could matter more than anything else. As sleep claimed them both, Alex felt a strange mixture of emotions: curiosity, concern, and a budding respect. Lyra was hiding pain, yes, but she was also brave, and somehow, he felt honored to be allowed to share even a smile. All part of it, the shared pod, once awkward and strange, had begun to transform into something else. a quiet space of understanding, where trust could grow and connection could flourish, one small moment at a time. The next morning, Alex woke to find Lyra already awake, sitting by the small window of their pod room. She stared at the swirling clouds of the gas giant below, her long fingers gently tracing patterns in the air. The sunlight from the distant star reflected softly off her deep blue skin, giving her an almost ethereal glow. Alex felt a pang of concern. There was something in her posture, a quiet weight, that made her seem smaller than she really was. "Good morning," Alex said softly, trying not to startle her. Lyra turned slowly, her eyes meeting his with that calm, unreadable gaze. "Good morning, human," she said. There was the usual calmness in her voice, but Alex thought he saw a flicker of something else, a shadow behind the words. He hesitated, then asked, "Lyra, are you feeling all right? You seemed distant last night." Her gaze drifted back to the gas giant. "I am well," she said after a pause. "Sometimes memories visit me. They are my companions in quiet moments. It is nothing for you to concern yourself with." Alex nodded slowly, but he could not let it go. He had learned enough about her to know that something more was hidden beneath her composed exterior. He decided to try a different approach. "I don't mind listening," he said. "Even if it's just a little. You don't have to tell me everything, but I want to understand." Lyra looked at him, and for a moment her expression softened. She did not speak immediately, but he noticed her shoulders relax slightly. "It is unusual for Veyari to share pain so openly," she said quietly. "Most of us carry it silently for the sake of others. To share, it is rare." Alex sat down beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "I know humans sometimes hide pain too," he said. "But sharing it doesn't make you weak. It can make you stronger. At least that's what I've learned." Lyra's eyes lingered on his for a moment, and Alex thought he saw a small flicker of relief. "Perhaps it is different when someone asks kindly," she murmured. Their day passed with lessons and exercises, but Alex could not stop thinking about her. During the afternoon training, he noticed her moving a little slower than usual. She completed her tasks efficiently, but there was a subtle hesitation in her steps, a small tension that he had learned to recognize. It was as if she were carrying something heavy, even though she tried not to show it. That evening they returned to their pod room, tired but quiet. Lyra did not speak much, instead preparing their sleeping pod with her usual precision. Alex climbed in beside her, and for the first time, he felt a strange mix of emotions, curiosity, empathy, and the growing awareness that Lyra's calm demeanor hid a deep vulnerability. As they settled into the pod, Alex noticed her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the blanket. "Lyra," he said softly, placing his hand near hers, "you don't have to hide everything from me. Even if it's just a little, it's okay to share." She froze for a moment, her large eyes meeting his. Then almost imperceptibly she exhaled. "Humans are persistent," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Perhaps that is not entirely unpleasant." Alex offered a small smile, letting her words sink in. "I care about you," he said simply. "That's why I notice." For a long moment neither spoke. Then as the pod's soft glow wrapped around them, Lyra's composure finally cracked just a little. A single tear slipped from her eye and traced a line down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away, but Alex could see it clearly. "It is nothing," she said, her voice tight. "Just a memory I prefer not to carry so openly." "Do not be concerned," but Alex refused to look away. "It's okay," he said softly. "I can be concerned. You don't have to do this alone." Lyra looked at him, and in her eyes Alex saw a storm of emotions: sorrow, relief, and the smallest hint of trust. She did not speak for several moments, just let the silence stretch between them. In that silence, Alex realized that this was more than a shared pod or a tradition. It was a fragile opening, a small window into her world, and she was letting him glimpse it. Eventually, Lyra exhaled, leaning slightly closer. She did not speak, but the small gesture told Alex everything he needed to know. She was not ready to share everything, but she was no longer hiding entirely. The weight she carried was still there, but now he felt it with her. Alex felt a quiet sense of honor. This was not just about tradition or habit. It was about trust, empathy, and the courage to show someone your pain, even if only a little. As he drifted towards sleep, the soft hum of the pod and the gentle rise and fall of Lyra's breathing wrapped around him like a protective cocoon. For the first time, he felt that their connection was deeper than words. a bond that might help them both face the challenges of life on Aurora Station together. And in that quiet, shared space, Alex realized that he was beginning to understand what it truly meant to care for someone from a completely different world. Over the next few days, Alex began to notice more about Lyra and her culture. The shared pod, once awkward, had become a space of quiet connection, a place where words were not always necessary. Still, Alex wanted to understand more. He had spent hours watching her move, observing her routines, and learning the subtle patterns of her life. But he realized he knew very little about her world. One afternoon, while the students gathered for a lesson on planetary ecosystems, Alex quietly asked, "Lyra, can you tell me about your home? What is it like?" Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes, calm as the surface of a still lake, considered whether she should answer. Finally she spoke, her voice soft and deliberate. "My planet Viridia is covered in forests that glow faintly at night. The trees are tall with leaves that hum when the wind passes through them. The rivers reflect the colors of the sky, and the air carries the scent of minerals and flowers together. It is beautiful, but also dangerous. Many creatures are skilled at hiding. One must always be aware." Alex listened in awe. He tried to imagine the glowing forests and the rivers that mirrored the sky. "It sounds incredible," he said. "I wish I could see it someday." Lyra's lips curved in the smallest hint of a smile. "Perhaps you will if you survive long enough in your own challenges," she said lightly. But Alex thought he heard a shadow of longing in her tone. As the days passed, Alex began to notice Lyra's small gestures. She would arrange the pod in ways that made it feel harmonious, even comforting. She hummed at night, not always to herself, but sometimes in patterns that seemed to communicate something he could not fully understand. There was a quiet rhythm to her life, a balance that made him feel both calm and curious. One evening, while they were preparing to sleep, Alex asked cautiously, "Do Veyari always share pain like you do, or do you just hide it from everyone else?" Lyra paused, sitting with her legs folded neatly beneath her. "Veyari learn early that showing pain can burden others. We carry it silently so those we care about can live without worry. To share it is a choice, not a requirement. You have been offered glimpses because you asked gently and have shown care. That is unusual for my kind." Alex nodded slowly, feeling honored. "I don't want you to feel alone. Even if you don't want to talk about everything, I want to be here for you." For the first time, Lyra's eyes softened completely, and she gave a faint nod. "Then perhaps trust is possible. You will learn patience, human. That is necessary to understand someone fully." Their conversation shifted to lighter topics after that, and for the first time, Alex saw Lyra laugh. It was soft, almost musical, but it carried warmth. He realized that beneath her calm exterior there was a personality full of curiosity, humor, and thoughtfulness. It made him feel closer to her than he had expected in such a short time. That night in the pod, Alex watched Lyra adjust the small blanket around them. "I think I'm beginning to understand why the shared pod is important," he said quietly. Lyra's eyes met his in the dim glow. "It is not merely comfort or convenience. It is a space where one can offer trust without words. You have been present without judgment. That is the essence of the tradition." Alex felt a warmth in his chest. He had never considered how important trust could be, how a simple act of presence could mean so much. The pod, once a source of discomfort, had become a quiet classroom in empathy, patience, and understanding. As sleep claimed them, Alex dreamed again of floating through the glowing forests of Viridia. He imagined walking beside Lyra, learning the rhythms of her world, feeling the soft vibrations of the humming trees. He felt a deep connection not only to her but to the universe itself, a sense that understanding another being, even from a completely different world, could open doors to something larger than himself. When he awoke, Lyra was already awake, staring at the station's viewport. "Do you think humans can learn as Veyari do?" Alex asked softly, curious. Lyra turned to him, a quiet smile touching her lips. "Perhaps, but only if they are willing to see beyond themselves, to listen without haste, and to be present without expectation. You are beginning that journey." Alex felt a surge of determination. He wanted to continue learning not just about Lyra's world, but about her feelings, her pain, and her hopes. He realized that understanding another person required patience, empathy, and courage. It was a lesson he had never expected to learn in a shared pod on a space station far from Earth that day. Alex carried a new awareness with him. He watched Lyra with care, respecting her silence but also valuing the small glimpses she offered of herself. The pod was no longer just a place to sleep. It had become a space of trust, of silent communication, and of growing connection. In this quiet, shared world, Alex began to understand what it truly meant to care for someone across worlds, and to see beyond appearances into the truth of another being's heart. And somewhere deep inside, he felt that this understanding would shape not only his time at Aurora Station, but the way he looked at the universe forever. The next day, Aurora Station announced a special exercise, a zero-gravity survival simulation. Students would navigate a section of the station in microgravity, complete tasks, and avoid obstacles designed to test their reflexes, coordination, and calm under pressure. Alex felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had trained for weeks, but the unpredictable environment of zero gravity always carried surprises. Lyra approached him, her movements calm and precise as always. "Be careful," she said softly. "This exercise requires trust in your partner. You must rely on each other completely." Alex nodded, feeling a pang of anticipation. He had learned to trust her in the pod, but this was different. In the simulation, mistakes could have real consequences, and he could sense that Lyra's calm exterior might be tested in ways he had never seen. As the exercise began, Alex felt the familiar pull of weightlessness. His body floated awkwardly and he struggled to adjust, bumping lightly into the walls. Lyra, however, glided effortlessly, her long limbs propelling her forward with grace. He tried to follow, keeping her in view, but soon realized she was lagging slightly behind the rest of her group. Suddenly, a simulated hazard, a floating debris cluster, came toward her. Alex saw her flinch, and for a fraction of a second her usual calm disappeared. Panic flashed in her eyes as she tried to adjust her trajectory. Without thinking, Alex propelled himself forward and grabbed her hand, steadying her as the debris floated past. Lyra's eyes widened, and she exhaled sharply, the small tremor in her body betraying her fear. Alex held her hand firmly, anchoring both of them. "It's okay," he said. "I've got you." For a moment, the simulation disappeared. It was just the two of them, suspended in zero gravity, connected by a touch that spoke more than words ever could. Lyra's usual composure returned slowly, but he could see the tension lingering in her shoulders and the rapid rise and fall of her chest. After the exercise ended, the students gathered in the debriefing room. Alex stayed close to Lyra, who seemed quieter than usual. He waited until the others left and then gently asked, "Lyra, are you all right? You seemed different during the exercise." She looked at him, and this time she did not try to mask her feelings. "That moment brought memories," she said quietly. "Memories I have long carried alone. I thought I could face them in silence, but I struggled." Her voice trembled slightly, a sound Alex had never heard from her before. Alex felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to say something comforting, but he knew no words could erase what she had felt. Instead, he simply nodded. "You don't have to face them alone anymore," he said softly. "I'm here. You can let me help, even if it's just by being with you." Lyra looked at him, and for the first time her eyes glistened with tears she did not try to hide. I lost my family," she whispered. "During a mission, they were taken by a storm of debris. I was the only survivor. I have carried that alone because it is what Veyari do. We hide our pain to protect others. But today it returned stronger than I could bear." Alex reached out slowly, placing his hand over hers. "I'm so sorry," he said gently. "You don't have to carry that alone anymore. Not with me." For a long moment, Lyra just stared at him as if seeing his words for the first time. Then she leaned closer, letting him feel the tremor of her body. I don't know how to let someone in," she admitted. "I have not trusted anyone like this for years." Alex squeezed her hand gently. "You can start small, just like we do in the pod. Step by step." A small shaky smile appeared on her face. "Perhaps step by step," she repeated. The air between them felt lighter, though the weight of her grief lingered. It was not gone, but now it was shared, and that made a difference. Later, back in their pod, Lyra remained quiet but closer to Alex than before. She adjusted the blanket so that they were side by side, and he noticed that she no longer flinched at his presence. The shared pod, once a simple tradition, had become a sanctuary, a place where she could allow herself to be vulnerable, and he could simply be there for her without judgment. Alex watched her for a while, marveling at her bravery. She had hidden pain for so long, endured it silently, and yet she had chosen to let him in. He realized that trust was not easy, especially for someone who had suffered so deeply. But by simply being present, he had helped her take the first step toward healing. As they drifted into sleep, the pod hummed softly around them. The stars outside the viewport sparkled like distant promises, and Alex felt a quiet determination. He would stand by Lyra, not just as a roommate, but as someone who could share the burdens of another being. And for the first time, he sensed that the connection between them went beyond tradition or curiosity. It was a bond built on empathy, courage, and trust. The days after the zero-gravity exercise were calmer, but Alex noticed a subtle change in Lyra. She moved with a softer confidence, no longer hiding as much of herself. The small tremors of her body and the fleeting shadows in her eyes seemed less frequent, replaced by a quiet attentiveness to the world around her. Alex felt a sense of relief. She was slowly learning to trust him, and he was grateful for every small sign. One morning, they were assigned to a joint project in the station's observatory. Students were tasked with mapping a newly discovered asteroid cluster. Alex struggled to handle the equipment, feeling clumsy among the smooth controls and holographic displays. Lyra, as always, moved gracefully, her fingers tracing the holographic maps with ease. "Here, let me help," she said, her voice gentle. Alex hesitated. He was used to helping her in the pod, but now she offered guidance calmly, without the usual distance that had sometimes made her seem unreachable. He nodded, accepting her help, and together they adjusted the coordinates and recorded data. As they worked, Alex found himself observing not just her skill, but her patience. She guided him without frustration, explaining in simple terms, encouraging him whenever he made mistakes. There was no pride in her actions, no arrogance, only a willingness to share what she knew. For the first time, Alex felt that their relationship was truly equal. Later, during a break, they floated to a small viewport overlooking the gas giant. Its swirling storms were mesmerizing, a constant reminder of the vast universe around them. Alex turned to Lyra, curious. "Do you miss Viridia?" he asked softly. Lyra's gaze lingered on the planet below, and for a moment she did not answer. Then she spoke, her voice almost a whisper. "I do. But I have learned that homes can be found not only in places, but in beings. Perhaps I am beginning to find one here." Alex felt his chest tighten. Her words were simple, but their meaning was profound. She was beginning to see him, not just as a roommate, but as a friend, perhaps even as a companion in a strange new world. He smiled softly. "I'm glad," he said. "I feel the same. This station, it feels more like home because of you." That night, back in their pod, Alex noticed Lyra arranging the blankets differently. She seemed less formal, more relaxed. He watched her for a while, admiring her bravery and showing even small glimpses of herself. He realized that trust was not about grand gestures. It was in these tiny actions, these quiet moments of connection that could not be forced. "You know," Alex said softly, "I think the shared pod tradition is more than just a ritual. It's a way to understand someone slowly without pressure." "You've taught me that." Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the pod. "And you have shown me that humans can be patient and gentle." "I did not know such things were possible." Her voice carried a small, genuine smile. "Perhaps there is more to learning than merely following rules." Alex chuckled quietly. "I think we both are learning in our own ways." Over the next few days, their friendship grew in subtle ways. They shared stories about their lives, little memories from childhood, and small hopes for the future. Alex learned that Lyra loved observing stars, and that certain colors in the night sky reminded her of her home planet. Lyra discovered that Alex enjoyed creating small sketches of alien landscapes, imagining worlds he had never seen. Each conversation, each shared laugh or quiet glance, strengthened their connection. One evening, while they floated near the station's garden dome, Alex noticed Lyra staring at a small flowering plant. The petals glowed faintly under the artificial lights, and she reached out, brushing her fingers along them. "These remind me of Viridia," she said softly. "It is strange to see something familiar yet different." Alex floated beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "It's beautiful," he said, "and I'm glad you can share it with me." Lyra's gaze met his, and for a moment there was silence. Then she said, "Perhaps this is what trust feels like. Not just being here, but allowing someone to share what is precious without fear." Alex felt warmth spread through him. He understood completely. Trust was not about saying the right words or performing perfect gestures. It was about being present, being patient, and letting someone take small steps toward opening their heart. That night in the pod, they lay side by side, quiet but content. The soft hum of the station surrounded them, and the stars outside twinkled in silent witness. Alex felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had come to Aurora Station expecting to learn about space, about technology, about exploration. But what he had truly discovered was far more valuable. The courage it took to trust, the patience required to understand another being, and the quiet joy of sharing a bond that could transcend worlds. Lyra, meanwhile, drifted toward sleep with a small, peaceful smile. She no longer flinched at his presence or hid behind invisible walls. She was beginning to accept that someone could care for her without judgment, without expectation, simply by being there. And in that shared space, both of them understood something profound. That friendship, empathy, and trust could grow even in the vast, unfamiliar reaches of space. The days passed quickly, and Alex could feel the bond between him and Lyra growing stronger with every shared moment. The station no longer felt cold or distant. The hum of machinery, the flickering lights, and the distant stars outside their pod window all seemed brighter, more alive. Lyra's presence had transformed the station into a place of understanding and trust. And Alex realized that what had begun as a strange tradition had become something far more meaningful. One evening, as they floated in the observatory, Alex noticed Lyra staring at a small cluster of stars. Their light reflected softly on her blue skin. "Do you ever think about the past?" he asked gently. Lyra's gaze remained fixed on the stars, but her voice was soft. "Yes, it lingers like a shadow. Memories of loss, mistakes, and pain. I have always carried them silently, for fear of burdening others. But I am learning that sharing even a little does not weaken me. Perhaps it strengthens the bonds I have now." Alex nodded, understanding completely. "I think it does," he said. "It makes us stronger, more connected. You've taught me that trust isn't about perfection. It's about being there no matter what." Lyra turned her gaze toward him, and for the first time, Alex saw a vulnerability that was not fleeting. She smiled faintly, and it reached her eyes. "And you have taught me that humans can be gentle, patient, and kind in ways I did not expect. I never thought I would trust someone so completely. Not for many cycles, anyway." Alex felt warmth rise in his chest. He had hoped to earn her trust, but hearing her say it aloud made him realize how far they had come. "I'm glad," he said simply. "I promise I will be here for you always." Lyra's smile grew a little brighter. She floated closer, and the space between them seemed smaller, more intimate, though still respectful. "Perhaps we have both found a kind of home here," she said. "Not in a place, but in someone else. In trust, in presence, in shared moments." That night, when they returned to their pod, Alex noticed that Lyra seemed lighter, freer. She moved with ease as she prepared the sleeping area, humming softly, the gentle tune wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. When he climbed in beside her, she did not flinch. She did not hesitate. She simply allowed him to share the space with her. "Alex," she said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "Thank you for being patient with me, for seeing me even when I tried to hide." Alex reached out and gently took her hand. "Lyra, you don't have to thank me. I am honored that you trust me. That is more than enough." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to relax completely. The wall she had built around her pain crumbled piece by piece, leaving room for connection and understanding. She leaned slightly closer, the warmth of her body mingling with his in the small shared pod. Alex could feel her steady breath, the slight tremor of emotions she had carried for so long now shared. No longer hidden, they lay side by side, silent but at peace, and the hum of the pod became a quiet rhythm that matched the beat of their hearts. Alex thought of the gas giant outside, the swirling storms, the distant stars, and realized that this vast universe full of unknowns felt safer somehow, because trust and friendship had bridged the gap between them. "Lyra," he said softly, "I think I understand now. The tradition, the shared pod. It wasn't just about sleeping together. It was about letting someone see you, even the parts you fear, and you've let me see you. I feel honored." She turned her gaze toward him, her eyes glowing softly. "And I am honored to let you in. For the first time I feel that my pain does not have to be carried alone, that I am seen. That is a gift, human. One I will not forget." Alex smiled, feeling a profound sense of connection. "I won't forget it either." For the rest of the night, they remained together in quiet comfort. No words were needed. Each had learned from the other the meaning of empathy, patience, and courage. Lyra had shown Alex the depth of Veyari tradition, the strength in carrying pain silently, and the bravery required to trust someone. Alex had shown Lyra that sharing pain, even a little, could bring healing, not weakness. By the next morning, both felt changed. Their friendship had grown into something deeper, a bond that crossed species, worlds, and traditions. The shared pod, once an uncomfortable necessity, had become a sanctuary, a place where trust, understanding, and care thrived. As they prepared for the day ahead, Alex glanced at Lyra and felt a quiet pride. She smiled back, serene and confident. In the vastness of space, surrounded by technology, stars, and unknown dangers, they had found something rare and precious, a connection built on trust, empathy, and shared presence, and in that connection, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.